Hello, welcome to episode 9 of Needles and Sprouts. My name is Whitney. Unfortunately today I am flying solo. Tori and I haven't been able to sit down together and record anything for a while, so I just thought I'd sit down all by myself and be lonely, but hopefully not lonely, sharing this with you, what I've been working on, just so I wouldn't get too far behind. Let's dive right in. I have a finished object. You could probably see it because I'm wearing it. This is my Granger cardigan. I'm going to stand up so you can see the Granger cardigan by Christoffers. I wonder if I can stand back here. Isn't it pretty? It's using Berocco Pixel, which is a single ply DK weight 100% wool superwash wool yarn. It's not the softest thing on the planet. It does have the tiniest bit of prickle to it, but it hasn't bothered me at all. And for single ply, I feel like it's holding up pretty well. It is starting. I finished this like a week or two ago, and I've been wearing it a lot because the weather's perfect for this kind of layering cardigan. You can see how it's starting to pill just a little bit, like on the sleeves. But it's not too bad, and it's holding up a lot better than I would have expected for a single ply yarn, which isn't as sturdy. But it has this nice bloom to it. I love the colors. The cardigan fits really well. It fits pretty perfectly. It's probably the best fitted sweater garment that I've made for myself to date. Did I do any modifications? I did a little bit. For the neckband, the button band part, it wanted you to do a seed stitch, and also for the sleeves, but I just did a 1x1 rib because at the bottom here is a 1x1 rib. And I just wanted the rest of it to match. Like, I thought it was a little bit odd to have the 1x1 rib and then seed stitch for here and here. I wanted it to be consistent throughout. Plus, I just really like the look of 1x1 rib. It looks really tidy to me. It looks really neat. I don't know. I really like the look of it. So I probably would have done it anyway. I'm really pleased with the pockets. I'm gonna stand up again. Look, it has pockets. And they're almost like invisible. I feel like I did a really good job sewing them in. Like, you can kind of see the inside of it there, but look how good my seam line is. Pretty invisible. I mean, I kind of had instructions for how to sew the pocket in, but I just kind of did my own thing. Just the way I was picking up stitches to sew it together, the two pieces together. I figure it doesn't really matter as long as you're consistent with how you do it. So I don't know if the way that I do it is like a thing, if it's a real thing that people do. I was just kind of making it up, but I think it looks really good. And I don't know if it has a name for it or whatever, but I'm really pleased with the pockets, and I'm happy with the sweater. It's everything I wanted. I'm really excited to wear it in the fall because the colors are very fall, autumn, rainbow to me. And right now we're moving into spring, which I love spring, and I 100% will still wear this, but I think it'll be really appropriate come autumn. I'm gonna wear it a lot as well. So that is my first, well, it's my only finished object, but I have a couple of works in progress. So my first work in progress are the socks that I just started last time. Oops. This is knit out of, the yarn is Knit Spin Farms yarn. It's a Corriedale sock is the base. It's 75% Corriedale, 25% nylon. And the colorway is Iris, You Were Here. Get it? Iris, you were here. It said, I wish you were here. Isn't it pretty? I love the self-striping. I love the way it's turning out. I actually haven't worked on these in a little while because I've gotten to the heel and I want to do a contrasting heel. And somewhere in a sock kit from a different dyer, it came with a contrasting mini skein for the heels and toes that's a natural. It's just like a white or creamy natural color that I want to use for this sock. So I just need to dig through my stash and find it. I just haven't taken the time to do that yet because I want to have that creamy natural for the heel and the toe, I think. So that is my Iris You Were Here sock from Knit Spin Farms yarn. And I'm knitting this on my size 1s instead of the size 2, which is what I normally knit on. And I think it's gonna fit a lot better, I'm hoping. So that is that one. This is a test knit that I'm doing for Julia Wardell of Pandia's Jewels. She dyes, she's an indie yarn dyer. She has beautiful, beautiful yarn. She's based out of New York. And Nimrus is her Instagram handle. But this is the Winter's Moon shawl. I think last time I'd showed the yarn for it. Last time I couldn't decide if I wanted to use this combination or the blue. I did swatch the blue and it just didn't look quite what I would have. The marl was a little bit too striking with these two colors for the patterning of the shawl. I thought it would just be a little bit too contrasty. So even though I liked it, I just went ahead and went for this one because it's a little bit less contrasty. So let me show you what that looks like. Oh, the yarn this is Cloudborne Fibers Highland DK. The pattern calls for a sock weight, the pattern calls for a sport weight. I didn't have any sport weight, but this yarn, they call it a DK, but it's pretty thin. It's a pretty thin DK. So I think I'm getting a sport weight gauge without problem. I think depending on what kind of knitter you are, you could get a whole range of gauges from this yarn. And you know, before I bought this yarn, the reviews online, some of them were saying that it was really flat, the yarn was lifeless. I'm finding that to be not true at all. I think it's as I'm working with it, it's very bouncy and plump and springy, and it has a lot of life. It's not flat. It's not a flat, dull, lifeless yarn at all. So I'm pleased with that. And then the contrasting yarn is some Cascade alpaca lace. I've had this for ages. I have this yarn in like 6 or 7 different colors. I don't know why I was on this thing for like lace weight alpaca yarn, but this is the first. I've had it for a couple years now, and this is the first time I'm actually using it. And it's really soft and it's really beautiful, and I'm glad to be using it. So anyway, let me show you. This is the shawl. It's all bunched up on the needles, but it has this really beautiful, like, I thought it was cables, but it really isn't. It's just these series of decreases and increases. Well, I mean, the knit two togethers and the slip slip knits kind of give you the illusion of these cables. And then you have these gathered stitches. It's just really cool. It's really, really pretty. And then the other side is the like a, what do you call it, a broken seed stitch type thing. So yeah, it's really pretty. I'm really digging it. I love the pattern so much, and even though I'm liking the way the yarn is feeling, the alpaca is making it really soft, and the Cloudborne is actually really bouncy and squishy, so I like the feel of the fabric a lot. But these colors aren't exactly what I would hope for. But it's the only thing that I had, and I did not want to buy yarn. So I'm not one to knit the same pattern twice. I just wish that I had a little bit different yarn for the color. Nevertheless, I'm still pretty pleased with this and how it's working out. So that is my Winter's Moon. This has to be, the deadline for this is the end of April, I think, April 30th, which is more time than I thought I had. But I'm cruising along. I'm not cruising, slow and steady, but I think I will win the race. Well, I know I will because I'm really good with deadlines. If I have a deadline, I actually work better with deadlines, with like a hard, like, this is the time you must be done by, because I work really well under pressure and I'm a procrastinator. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. But the thing that I've really been working on, okay, let's preface this with, as I mentioned, I didn't want to buy yarn for the Winter's Moon shawl. I have decided to put myself on a yarn diet, but it's more than that. It's not just not buying yarn. Me and my husband and our family, we're trying to do, be a little bit wiser with our finances as far as getting out of debt. We just have some student loan debt, and saving up for other things that we might want. So we're doing a pretty strict plan, a pretty strict budget of no spending, and it's been hard in the sense that, like, I see yarn and it is so pretty, and I've kind of become an addict, like a yarn buying addict, and it's not good. It's not healthy. And there's been so much yarn that I've seen that I haven't bought, and every time I don't buy it, I pat myself on the shoulder. I'm just like, I'll always open it in a new, like, I'll be scrolling Instagram and find yarn that I think is really pretty, and I'll open that in my like Google Chrome browser and have all these windows of all this yarn open. And so instead of letting myself browse, I just swipe and close the windows. Like, nope, you're not even allowed to look at it. That's a bit of a tangent, but so I have these parameters now that I have to work in. No spending on yarn, and no spending on patterns either. That's another one, because patterns, especially if there's a sale and you can buy a pattern for $2 or $4 or even $5, it seems so reasonable. You're like, oh, it's just one $5 pattern. It's just one $3 pattern that's on sale even. And then 10 patterns later, you realize you've just spent 50 bucks or whatever. Anyway, and for me, I get a little bit stressed because I see all these patterns and I want to knit them all. But the more new patterns that come out, it means the old patterns that I fell in love with aren't getting knit, because I'm always seeing something new, and it kind of creates a chaos where, in my mind, where it's like, I want to work on this, but no, I already paid for this pattern way back there, and you know, a few months ago I really wanted to work on that, but now there's something new, and so you feel like you want to just keep working on the new thing. Anyway, the point is, now I have parameters. These are my options: the yarn that I have in my stash and the patterns that I already have in my library. And I've found it strangely liberating. I've found it really exciting to browse my patterns in my library and Ravelry, ones I've already purchased or ones that I have in knitting books or magazines that I have. I don't have a ton, but I've got a stack. And I only buy them if there's something in there that I know I want to knit. So it's been really fun and really liberating to be like, okay, you can only work within this scope. And it makes you a little bit more creative, because it's like, okay, maybe I wouldn't have done this before, but now that these are my parameters, these are my options, but how can I mix and match my options to make the most optimal thing? Anyway, I don't know if that makes any sense at all, but I have found it strangely or maybe not strangely, but really fun and really liberating to have these boundaries on myself and kind of force myself, not forcing because it's something I want to knit anyway, but force myself to work on things that I've cataloged already, but have moved on from, but now I'm revisiting them and getting re-excited about some older things. And also I have all these, I've been building up scraps, not scraps, but leftovers, you know, your leftover yarn balls. And I've been wanting to do some sort of scrap project, and I know there are a lot of scrap blankets out there, and some of the, like the Cozy Memories is a really popular one, and I kind of like that one, but I want something a little different, and there are a few new ones and a few different ones around, and I've been playing with all these different ideas. But being forced to look through the library of patterns I already own, or patterns that are available for free, I found that a couple years ago I had purchased the Pinwheel Scrap Blanket pattern by Mina Phillip of Knitting Expat Designs. And I remember I bought the pattern for $1, like whenever it came out a couple years ago. I was like, oh, I could work on that and I could use up a lot of scraps. And I have been obsessed. It's all I've been working on. Well, I mean, not all I've been working on, but I've been working on a lot because each little square uses 8 different colors and I've been using up so much scrap yarn. There's one square. So I have 5 finished squares and I've blocked 4 of them. Is that right? 2, 3, 4, yeah. So let me just show you my finished. And these are all sock yarn. So here's number 1. Well, I say number 1. This is not necessarily the order I finished them in. It doesn't really matter. And each little triangle takes me about a half an hour to make. And I think I've gotten faster since I started. I started out a little bit longer than that, but now I'm really zooming along. I really like this square in particular. I think I'll just hold them here, it's better. Look at all those colors. And then there's this one. This one I did the same yarn for 2 triangles in a row. So this is all one sock yarn. Here's a finished one that I finished last night, but I haven't blocked it. This one's a little more neutrally. Anyway, so I figured this is a great long-term project. And I was looking at pictures online, and there's some people who just have sewed their squares all together just like this. And to me, that's a little bit too busy. I want some sort of separation between my squares, some sort of border. And I think I have a yarn that I'm going to use for it. It's just like a undyed natural color, but with sparkle. It's a Miss Babs Estrelita, but it's naked, meaning it hasn't been dyed. And I think that would be really good. I just don't know if anybody has any suggestions of a good border. So would I knit a border on each square and then sew them together, or would I, you know, put my 5 squares or however many in a row and pick up stitches along all 5 at once? I'm not really sure how that works, how to make it work. So if anybody has any suggestions on a knitted, I don't want to crochet because I just don't want to. I just don't want to. No offense to any crocheters, it's just I don't want to have to learn how. I like knitting and I want my blanket to be knit. So I need to figure out how to do that, to do a border between the squares. So that is the biggest thing. Look, I've got 5 done. Oh, and I have another one that I'm working on. I'm in the middle of a triangle here. So yeah, these are all just a whole bunch of minis. Most of it so far has been leftover yarn from other projects, socks or sweaters. And I have this whole bag here. It's just full of all my little leftovers. I did have one set of minis that I wound up. There were 5 little mini skeins that I put in here. I haven't decided if I want to use my advent calendar mini skeins for this project because I had a shawl in mind for those, and I still will probably hold on to those to see if I want to make that shawl or not. But even then, if there are any leftovers from that, it would go into this blanket. So I've been really enjoying using up a lot of my scraps. It's really, really satisfying to use it all up. And I'm trying not to be sad that it's all gone, because part of me is like, but what if you need it? But that's just silly. There's no point in holding on to it. Put it into a project that you will love. Okay, so just another cute little thing. I won a giveaway on Instagram. I'm really excited. I won a set of stitch markers. These are by Pearl Smith. Her name is Becky Smith. And look at how pretty these are. So these are lightweight, snag-free, handcrafted in Bend, Oregon, freshwater pearl and sterling silver stitch markers. So I won the giveaway that she had, and she said I could pick a set with, it comes with either copper or silver. And there were so many different colors. There were like minty greens, which normally is what I'd be attracted to, but there are also these pinks and yellows and more like mother of pearl color, just like normal pearly color ones, and some grayish ones and brown. They're just all, I love freshwater pearls. I love their lumpy bumpies and all the different colors that they come in. I think they are so pretty. And I for the life of me, I could not decide on her website. So I was like, hey, go for it. Can you just pick me whatever, just surprise me? And she said, sure. And she did. Look at this. So it's not even like a set of all the same colors. There's light pink and dark pink, yellow. I mean, I just think they're so pretty. So I could not recommend these highly enough. They're beautiful. And I'm really excited to use them. I need more stitch markers, and I'm going to immediately incorporate them into the shawl that I'm using. And she gave me a couple, there are a couple here with the little claspy so you can open them. And then some that are just closed ring stitch markers. So I'm just really excited, and I'm really grateful to Becky for sending these to me. And they're so pretty. They're so, I highly, highly, highly recommend them. Pearl Smith, she's on Etsy. It's Pearl Smith, so even though they're freshwater pearls, it's P-U-R-L Smith .etsy.com. So that's fun that I won that. Other things that have been going on, I talked about my yarn diet, but it's springtime and Tori's not here to talk about, Tori mentioned that she hasn't had a ton of knitting recently, but she's had a lot of sprouting. Tori is big gardening, into gardening. And I like gardening too, but I'm just not as good at it, and therefore not as passionate about it as, as Tori is. But I will say I love my roses, and I am super proud of myself because I'm just going to tell you the story of a rose bed that I have. So along the back of our wee little house, there's I put a bed of roses, and I have one, okay, I'll name the roses. I have a Poseidon, which is a, I can't ever remember if it's a I think it's a grandiflora. I have a David Austin English rose, Golden Celebration, and then I have a clematis, and then I planted a little Coco Loco rose in front of my clematis. Coco Loco, then I have an, is it Easy Livin' or Livin' Easy? It's one of those. It's a coral. It's really, I'll probably put pictures in of all of them because I love them all. And then I have a Lady of Shalott, and then I have a Falling in Love. So these are all the roses along the back of my house. The Poseidon is a rose that when I first bought it, I thought it was just so beautiful. It's like this pale lavender kind of color, and it blooms prolifically, like it blooms a ton. But over a few years, and it is in the best spot. So this rose, it's in the spot that gets the least amount of shade, because the ones on the other end get probably a couple hours more shade because of a big tree that we have there. This Poseidon rose, the name of the rose is Poseidon, has the best spot of any roses in my entire yard. It gets water coverage, between water coverage and sunlight. It is the best spot in my entire yard, which I didn't realize when I planted all my roses at the time. I just didn't quite realize that that's the way it would work out. But over the years, I think this would be its 4th year in that spot. Since I realized that's a prime spot, I kind of wanted to put a prime rose in that spot. And I've discovered that the Poseidon, as pretty as it is, it gets crispy really fast. So what I mean, the blooms would be really beautiful, but they just get burnt in a second. Like, as soon as they start opening, the petals get burnt and kind of crusty. And it has a really high petal count, so there are a lot of petals packed into that little bloom and bud, but the whole thing just kind of crumbles before it's even open all the way. So in theory, it's really, really pretty, but it hasn't turned out quite as showy as I had hoped. I didn't want to kill her. I didn't want to get rid of the rose. I just wanted to replant it. And early spring or late winter is the best time for that, like late February or early March. And so that's what I did. It was actually probably around the 2nd week of March or so. We had a really nice day. The ground, it just rained a lot or even snowed, so the ground was pretty easy to dig because it was pretty damp still. So I cut that sucker back. I love pruning my roses. I just chop them. I go at them. So I pruned it back really hard, and then I dug it up and I put it way over in a spot over along our fence. I have a line of roses over here. The problem with that line of roses, even though they get good sunlight, is the water coverage from the sprinklers is not very good. It's not very consistent. So you kind of have to keep an eye on them or hand water them, which I'm not very diligent about. So those roses, some certain spots don't do so well. So that's, even though they get a lot of sun, the water coverage isn't great. Anyway, so I put it over there. And hopefully I'll be able to, since it's such an established rose, it'll do well. And it's been a couple weeks since I moved it, and it's looking really good. It's looking fine. And I put an I have 3 roses in pots that I planted I planted them in big, large planters. But the tags have fallen off or blown away. So I'm not entirely 100% sure which rose it is that I put in its spot, but I'm pretty sure it's the America Climber, which is like a coral pink rose. Oh, it's so pretty. And that is like one of my new favorites. Well, new, I love it. It's been a favorite for a couple of years. Anyway, so I put that rose in that spot, and I'm excited to see how it does. And I've got other things blooming that I'm excited about. I have my daffodils. I've got some other little bulbs. Maybe I'll put some pictures in. But that has been my gardening adventures and my knitting adventures. Thank you for joining me. I'm sorry that Tori couldn't be here, but hopefully we'll be able to record soon and we'll give you all the updates. Okay, peace out.